It's going to be personnel driven sometimes too, how the Blazers determine what type of defense they're going to show on those ball screens. What a sight to see. Derrick Jones Jr. from 3. Dame, when he's on that baseline and in that corner, because you don't want to trail too much if he comes off a handoff because he can pop the 3. Oh, my goodness. Boy, snatched that.
Blazers with the weak side defense. CJ trying to come down.
And he can read it, and Derrick Jones Jr. just cuffed that.
Blazers down 9. Oh, Jones Jr. with the steal in the backcourt. Assaults the rim.
Picking up full. Taking on the challenge.
Dame thinking about his choices. Nurkic sets the screen. Dame up top to Jones Jr. with the reverse slam.
Clear for takeoff. Airplane mode.
I thought the pass was going out the building for a second, Lamar.
No,
I forgot
he'll
who was
go
on
out
the
the
baseline.
building and grab it.
Wood. Covington fakes the 3, puts it on the floor, slips a pass to Jones Jr. Throws it down.
This time it wasn't Nurk as the playmaker out the middle. It was Rocco. Make it happen. Find him.
Biggest lead of the second half for the Lakers. Jones Jr. finds Nurkic down low. Beautiful find.
Yeah, great find from Derrick.
Second differential between shot and game clock. LeBron trying to work with Harrell. Spins into Cantor. Jones Jr. splats it.
Yeah,
Suit.
Ennis makes a lot of this happen because when LeBron's coming at him, Ennis is backing up. And LeBron takes his time to gauge Ennis and spins and tries to make contact. And while all that's going on, airplane mode is preparing to activate.
Blazers back up 3. LeBron going against Cantor. Oh, Jones Jr. tried to haunt his dreams.
That's one where Derrick will go back and tell Ennis, don't mess anything up down low. Just be there. Distract him. Let me go get that up top.
Dame over to Covington. Jones Jr. in the corner. Pops the 3.
I like it. I like the shots he took in the last game against the Lakers. It was the right looks. He made his presence felt without even knocking those down.
Especially with the unfortunate news surrounding Zach Collins and the surgery today. You love having even more depth in the front court as Jones Jr.
That's smooth on the break. Looked like a gazelle.
Wiseman. Wiggins trying to work the 2-man game, flips a pass out, but Jones Jr. reads it perfectly. Dame
Good.
flips it to CJ. He's got 4 threes on the night. That's off, but Jones Jr.
Good find.
finds Cantor. Easy bucket.
Good find from Derrick. And then once again, right there to pick up Steph Curry in case he gets the basketball.
Top 10 to shoot.
Oh, yeah, Derrick on the lob. They were looking for it.
CJ long 3. No good. Jones Jr. keeps it alive. Flips it back to Dame. Gets into the paint, sneaks it in with the right.
He went right at Wiseman. Whenever you throw that Euro step at somebody, you want to go directly at them. Don't let them guess which direction you're going to step to first.
Field to go along with 8 dimes. Jones Jr. with the steal. Here it is, Lamar.
On his head. Before he connected on this. He missed a couple over his last couple games that were incredible highlights. And here, taking a hit in the face, he just snapped that neck back into place.
Without having Klay Thompson out there, no Kevin Durant, no Draymond Green for the majority of the game.
Good pass.
Backdoor Derrick Jones Jr. with the pull-up.
That's what I'm talking about right there. Dribble, lad action.
Beautiful two-man game by the Blazers.
Playing too many minutes.
Dame finds Nurkic. Nurkic able to snag it, goes up and over, no good, but Jones Jr. finishes it.
And ready to pick up. The other end. Came into tonight's game with 28 made threes, second most in the NBA. Get up, Derrick.
Cantor with the quick find to Jones Jr. who packs it home. Great defense by the Blazers. CJ brings it down. Jones Jr. in transition. Put your tray tables up.
I think Terry Stotts was seeing the same thing. You don't want to allow Thaddeus Young to kind of have his way out there.
Baseline drive for Williams. Jones Jr. everywhere on the defensive end.
Wes has talked about that, the familiarity of your own baskets, your own locker room, the normal routine. Derrick Jones Jr. cashing in from the corner.
Nurkic thought about the three. Hands it off to Jones Jr., 10 to shoot. Jones Jr. with the spin move, puts it up in the middle, and 7 points this quarter for Derrick Jones Jr.
That was smooth. On the spin, had great balance.
Kicks it over to Russell for the three. Dame will race it down, finds Jones Jr. Slamma-jamma.
You knew Minnesota was in trouble when Edwards committed up too high. He saw the letter O coming at him, and he took one step up.
Dame gets the defense to rotate. Jones Jr. from the corner. Beautiful execution by Portland.
You know what?
Hield hesitates, trying to work against CJ. Deflected. Blazers with quick hands yet again. Jones Jr. with the finish.
Rocco put that ball on the floor. Derrick was maybe expecting a quick tip pass on the catch, but Robert saw the angle to the middle, extended into the lane. And his dad saying to trade him. Ooh-wee! Go up high.
Yusuf Nurkic with the connection to Jones Jr. CJ 3 of 5 from outside. Jones Jr. gets the receive and puts it off the glass.
Nice pass. Good catch from DJ. Scott, Duncan Robinson, Davis Bertans. Buddy Hield.
Jones Jr. from the corner, knocks it down. Dame up top to Jones Jr. Cleared for takeoff.
You got to watch out for Dame at half court for both the shot and the pass.
Ooh, he catches that 6 feet away from the hoop. From ESPN said he has flashes of Damian Lillard-like range. Had a 3 near the logo against Indiana. So Dame setting the standard. CJ, oh, Jones Jr. put the lid on it.
Watch your head.
Got to get a body on him.
Yeah. That baseline creep. He's always back there.
Here's average double figures. Quick steal by Sumner, trying to race and get it before he steps out of bounds. Sumner blocked by Jones Jr. Tapped away, Blazers. Hands are on display. Jones Jr. in transition. Nice lay-in.
Perfect fast break.
In the locker room at this point. We'll give you an update as soon as we hear something, but Anthony Simons taking his spot on the floor. Bounces a pass to Cantor. Off the window, no good. Jones Jr. there to put it back in.
Derrick
will face even more adversity trying to come back from this 5-point deficit. Covington to Jones Jr. Jones Jr. double clutch and good.
Good find from Robert. And Derrick always looking to...
Up top, Jones Jr. Up top, Jones Jr.
Keeps him off balance.
throws it. Dame matched up. Spinning baseline. Jones Jr. Access denied.
Go up and get that. Help out your point guard who you know has 2 fouls. Can't pick up a third. Dame takes away the high side, middle of the floor. Forces DeRozan to spin back. Derrick is there and waiting.
Lamar, you played against him. There are high leapers and quick. Blazers have to pick up. Aldridge, quick flip. Oh, blocked by Jones Jr. Lineup on the floor right now. They've had a little bit of success. Melo with quick hands again. Jones Jr. out in transition.
Catch me if you can. Not this time.
Derrick Jones Jr. propelling the Blazers offense midway through the third quarter.
From the three-point line.
Just 12 games with the left ankle sprain. Jones Jr. elevates off the glass.
All right, he took off from like the dotted line and then thought about what he wanted to do afterwards. I don't even know if he planned on shooting the whole time. I think he did, but you can't be certain with him. One dribble and then just bounce.
Blazers 4 of 6 from outside. Another steal by the Blazers. And the runway is clear for Derrick Jones Jr. Just a short little puddle hopper.
He went easy on us. He's still in break mode. And then 5 days off. He's trying to make it, you know, you still get some rest within the game when you can.
8:20 left in this ball game. Gary Trent Jr. Nice little step through the paint. No good. Jones Jr. with the
full strength with scoring the basketball. It's going to be even more difficult tonight, especially if Dame's going to start off carving him up. Looking at Derrick making that baseline cut. He's so good at it.
Derrick Jones Jr. with the game's first points.
I'm going to try to call the game and put in my Zoom passcode if I can at one time. Outside a shot. Jones, he puts it down. Pretty shot outside in 11. So Reggie, he's put it in 2 strong games trying to defend. Lillard around him. Cross court and on top. It's a step back 3 for Melo. Oh, wow. Holy smokes.
Well, there's a reason why he's
There's a long shot outside, which will not go for Oladipo, who is now 5 of 11. Inside, great feed. Jones is there. Shot clock is down to 10. Knocked away. Cantor was there with the defense, as was Jones. And Jones will go right by Oladipo for the easy 2.
Bulls on Wednesday. Knicks trying to corral Dame. Melo over to Simons. Jones Jr. in the corner. Huge 3 for Derrick Jones Jr.
Beautiful looking shot. I remember when the Magic came back for the first time when Chief joined them as DJ shows you the quick double jump ability. He'll take the hit and go to the line. It's a completion so that Derrick can complete that cut and take off with it.
Jones Jr. pipes in a 3.
Wide open.
Dame working the entire Magic defense. Jones Jr. with the flush.
Starting with Dame's drive, but
is their defense. Can they? They're not going to be a great defensive team, Reggie. Can they get enough stops though that their offense 4th in the league in points per game at 29.1? Derrick Jones Jr. can't finish. Cantor's there to clean it up. No, and then Jones returns. Lillard late in the shot clock, gets by Simmons, kicks it. Here's Derrick Jones Jr. And right at the end of the timer,
Jones Jr. He's off to the races. Trying to go through Garland. Tough finish off the glass.
I like the decision to put the head down and go make a play. You don't need to find the point guard. Take it yourself.
To his left. Trying to work through the Dallas defense. Blazers work it around. Melo, corner 3. Jones Jr. top shelf, baby.
Here it is.
Huge putback jam by Derrick Jones Jr. And then gets the block on the other end.
Right after this play from Derrick. Going up, snatching it away from Porzingis. who was floating around rather than boxing out DJ. That's something we talked about. Porzingis getting lost.
In a row for Gary Trent Jr. and the Blazers have opened up a 9-point lead. Here's Brunson.
Go get that!
Spinning. Jones Jr.
Go get it!
Lillard into the paint. Out to Jones Jr. Cantor tips it to Dame. Up and under. Jones Jr. there to clean it up.
Good job from Derrick. Staying involved in the play. They helped off of him by a lot to stop the Dame drive. And sometimes when people do that, as Oklahoma City's going to take...
Jones Jr. attacking, and 6 points for Derrick Jones Jr.
I'm loving his activity, because even the play before on Dame's made layup, Derrick was flying to the rim yet again.
Wants to go to town against Maladone. Covington able to save it. Lillard, the recipient. Finds Jones Jr. Better call your mama, Lamar.
Right down the middle of the lane. Offensive rebound. It's a good time to take a three-point shot because defense can't get set. Also, a great time to re-attack. Get into the paint.
Blazers with the rebound. Trent Jr. in transition. Lillard will slow it down.
Oh, he's got Derrick.
Jones Jr. on the baseline. Easy connection.
Great read from Dame. Derrick ran the floor hard the first time. Gary could have thrown that ball up to him maybe, but decided to go with the safer bet, pull the ball back out, but you're still in secondary break.
Oh, shit! Oh, shit! Oh, shit!
Lamar, you came up with a nice word as far as the prospects for a Blazer comeback. Jones Jr. Even more of that.
DJ with his second dunk of the night. You know, he averages a dunk a game. And here's what's super as a player that Dame has wanted to see the best of. Like this is up top. Oh, DJ.
Energy for the Blazers defense here to start the second half.
Yep, Derrick running around the screen.
They're trying to chase it down.
He had Derrick on that baseline cut. Oh, Rocco sees him.
Jones Jr. softly lays it in.
Great pass. Lasered that ball right through there. Too late. That's all right. You went with the sure bet.
Dame through the legs. Nice with the defense. Jones Jr. pipes a three from the corner.
Great setup. DJ ready.
And assists. Cantor outside to Hood. That's off Jones Jr. snatching it and putting it back in.
Man, 10 feet high. Snatching rebounds, pulling it in, and then going back. Still 2 feet above the three-point line because you got to take away that extremely long-distance shot. Ooh,
Hachimura, the turnaround. Lopez with the offensive rebound, blocked by Jones Jr.
Ready to go get it.
103-101. Beal, blocked by Jones Jr., sent to the floor. Lillard finding Jones Jr. on the baseline, able to get the loose change and put it in.
The Suns getting lost a little bit, and it's just...
Blazers trail by 6, 54-48. Just over 2 minutes left. Lillard up top, Jones Jr. lays it in.
So to the point of what I think you were asking about.
Lillard with 8 in defending.
Same
up
thing.
Top, Jones Jr. again.
Yep, same thing. And that's the Blazers making the right read. Good pass from Dame, but there's one defender down there, Chris Paul, and you could throw a jump ball to DJ with Chris Paul down there.
Lillard sees the double team, flips it to Jones Jr., who attacks and sidesteps. 8.
That's a great take because when Dame draws those two and gets rid of the basketball, DJ knows I got to go quick while I have the numbers. Didn't allow his man
to Damian Lillard. Dame with the slow dribble goes behind his back, gets a screen, one-hand pass to Cantor. Now he finds Jones cutting, and he stuffs it in with two hands.
Oh, that's the high school chin-up on the baseline, Derrick Jones Jr.
Come back the other way with it. Here's Dame in the front court. It's a 5-on-4, spins around, turns, finds Jones cutting, and he stuffs it in with two hands.
Ooh, he jumped like he came off a plyometric box.
How about that for the Les Schwab doing the right thing matters? Because it was under 2 minutes, they have no fouls left to give. Here's Jones spinning around at the rim and lays it in. Do have a foul to give. 1 minute to play. Jokic dribbles and has his shot blocked underneath by Jones. Picked up by Dame. He dribbles and attacks, spins around, goes up with the left hand and lays it in for two. 5-point game, 51
Rebound,
seconds.
Kuzma. Kuzma trying to go one-on-one against Jones Jr.
Nope.
Poor decision.
Nope. But he's a much better player than just a sub 5-point per game scorer.
Lillard has to get it up. Cantor chases down the offensive rebound. Another opportunity. Jones Jr. with the early slam.
LeBron.
20 points for LeBron on the night to go with 7 rebounds, 4 assists. 6 to shoot. Now the Blazers get an easy look down low.
You run some good action.
Simon's in the open floor. He'll slow it down and wait for his comrades to join him. Cross-court pass, Jones Jr. Count it. Double team comes towards Lillard. Lillard finds Jones Jr. in the corner. Another three at a key moment. Warriors determined to send the double team towards Lillard. Jones Jr. jabs at Green. A step back three from Jones Jr. A thing of beauty.
If you have inside position on a rebound.
Jones Jr. Beautiful feed to Cantor.
Yeah, good take. I thought Derrick's game was above the cylinder, and then another angle looked like it was rolling off. So
Jones Jr. cutting through the lane, and how about the finish as he gets hung up?
A driver. Quick decision. There goes a bit of that Euro step that we saw Harrison Barnes use. A slow down one, but also operate off. Good pass.
Baseline feed to Jones Jr. He goes. Well, the story of the first half has been Ricky Rubio for the Timberwolves, but Jones Jr. with the athletic finish.
That's him having to
Lillard turns the corner. Finds Melo. Beautiful pass from Melo to Jones Jr.
Wow, laser pass. Carmelo with the vision. He knew where he was going with that basketball before it even hit his hands.
Ingram slapped at by Covington.
Wow, big time play. He's got 3 fouls, and he knows he can make that slap without fouling again. Ooh.
Jones Jr. somehow gets that in.
Oh, DJ shaking and baking.
Fine positioning, poked away by the Blazers.
Good defense, because had that pass connected, that would have been 2. Instead, it's DJ on the other end.
Lillard with the long distance connection to Jones Jr. Benny Adams. Ingram had 30 points 2 nights ago. Jones Jr. with the first block. Jones Jr. will square up. Cantor taps it back out to Trent Jr. Covington back to Trent Jr.
Oh,
Jones Jr. cleaning it up.
He was on a runway. Pelicans give up the fewest offensive rebounds per game in the league. You don't get a lot of these. Run and start for DJ.
Blazers, another steal by the Pelicans. Ingram.
Oh, go get that.
Jones Jr. with the pack.
Go get that.
Williamson denied.
You got Rocco going low. You let DJ go high. That's the best way to play that.
2 players here tonight. Jones Jr. fires the 3.
DJ, we're going to keep talking about you. You keep that to just about the entire league. Which, Jordan, I go back to, why isn't he living in the post?
Oh, DJ Jones. 13 points in this first half. Lillard goes by Brown up top. Jones Jr. throwing it down.
There it is, the vision from Damian Lillard.
safety protocols. Use of Nurkic, that right calf strain. Zach Collins out with the left ankle stress fracture. Covington, Jones Jr., ring the bell, baby.
Take the screws out the rim, DJ.
Cantor dumps it to McCollum. He'll be patient, gives it to Jones Jr. Rise and shine.
Oh, the double clutch. Oh, the pump. And then he was playing kickball after.
Here's Lillard up top. Jones Jr. Go ahead, throw behind your head.
It's getting better by the dunk. He went from the double pump and then kicked the ball out of bounds afterwards to turn.
For Portland, McCollum against Robinson. McCollum finds Jones Jr. Jones Jr. with the slam and the...
From the three-point line.
Simons collapsing the defense. Blazers working around Jones Jr. and it's a clinic for the Blazers.
Oh, it's good night time. If both of them
under 2 minutes left here. Hood loses the handle. Jones Jr. off to the races. Wants to go right by Trent Jr. and softly lays it in.
And back-to-back highlights on
4 straight points for Van Vliet, and the lead is back up to 6. Jones Jr. corkscrewing and finishing.
A layup contest. This is getting you the H. 360 on the baseline, up and under. Oh, man.
Are you even attempting that if you're playing horse with him?
No, you take the only 2 points for him. And he struggled just really to get anything going. Only shot twice. Jordan, I put my head down for a second. It was just a second, but apparently that's too long for DJ to wait. Popped up. Just trying to keep them honest defensively.
McCollum to Jones Jr. He'll shoot the 3, and Derrick Jones Jr. 7 on the shot clock. Melo dumps it off to Jones Jr. for the flush.
That's a great look from Carmelo. He knew what the options would be upon the catch.
Bothered by Cantor, another stop for the Blazers. Lillard up top, Jones Jr. Buckle up, baby.
Head up. Airplane mode taking off in Salt Lake City. Up top. It's a big fella. And a really strong, bumps him off the spot, but with Dame strength and the low center of gravity.
Jones Jr.
And then it's his feet.
How about Cantor even gets jump balls?
That's why Iguodala's pointing down there, trying to stop him. Oh!
Jones Jr. rises up.
Talk about a takeoff.
Man. Jones Jr. off the handoff, goes up. Derrick Jones Jr.
DJ curling into the lane, and it's liftoff time. Move the ball slightly to the side. Bring it back to the middle, and throw it down.
Turnover. Powell lobs it up. Slam down. Derrick Jones is a high flyer. Portland.
And that was a tough shot right there. And once again, man leaking out. A great steal here by...
Really good. But he's trying to get to the paint a lot, Jordan. He averages 12.5 points per game in the paint. Leads all guards. Nurk cleaning that out. That might make Sexton and the Cavs think twice about going in there.
Then Jones Jr., the pretty finish. Off the block, some defense leading to offense. 4 with 13 points. Lillard gets the screen from Nurkic and top shelf to Jones Jr.
Oh, yes. Raise the roof, Zach. With the Bubba-licious and everything. That's that same play. Dame in that corner. Now they allow him to come on.
Cantor, Blazers, whip it around. Jones Jr., okay. Flying off the bench. Indianapolis from the corner. The three rattles out. Nurkic able to secure it. Jones Jr. Open runway, baby! Lillard up top. Jones Jr. calmly collects himself. That's what Coach Stott said in his pregame presser. Said he loves afternoon games when there's a win. Jones Jr. clear